50 years ago tonight, the television series MASH premiered on CBS. During its 11-season run, MASH received over 100 Emmy nominations.
The final season of MASH wasn't just about wrapping up a show.
Be brave, be loyal, be true. And keep your white flags handy just in case.
Dismissed.
It was Alan Alda's chance to reveal what really happened behind the scenes.
Nurse, I'm putting myself in your hands.
That'll be a switch.
Don't get fresh, Doctor.
I can't help it. I have myself flown in fresh every day.
While fans saw laughter and emotion on screen, the reality backstage was far messier. In this video, Alda exposes long-held secrets, tensions among cast members, and moments that never made it to air. Stay with us. Some of this you've never heard before. MASH. Behind the Laughs and Legacy. The quirky asterisks in the title, MASH, didn't follow military formatting. They were a bold, stylistic move, a hint at the show's unorthodox spirit. While the name refers to the Mobile Army surgical hospital units active during the Korean War, the series itself operated on a very different battlefield: television history. Debuting in 1972, MASH wasn't just another war drama. It was a genre-defying hybrid. It cut through the conventions of primetime TV, offering black comedy in a military tent.
Mutiny on the bus. It was a B movie. They couldn't afford a bounty. Alan Jenkins played the bus driver.
It was a show that made you laugh at absurdity one minute and confront mortality the next. But the real drama? That often unfolded when the cameras stopped rolling. For over a decade, MASH became appointment television, anchored by Alan Alda's compassionate yet sarcastic Hawkeye Pierce. But as ratings climbed and awards piled up, so did behind-the-scenes tension. In a recent tell-all interview, Alda, now revered not just as an actor, but as an elder statesman of entertainment, finally pulled back the curtain on one of the show's most persistent whispers. That one cast member nearly derailed the show's tight-knit dynamic. Though Alda stopped short of naming names, those familiar with MASH lore might read between the lines. Some speculate he referred to Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John.
My brother contacted yellow fever during the digging of the Panama Canal.
You should have called me sooner, sir.
Good pretzels.
Or perhaps McLean Stevenson, whose early departure sent ripples through the show. Others point to the tension between cast members over creative direction and screen time. The truth is murkier than any tabloid headline, but it's clear that the camaraderie on screen was sometimes the product of professional discipline, not personal harmony. Yet, even with its conflicts, MASH endured and evolved. Characters came and went, tones shifted, but the soul of the series stayed intact. Its final episode in 1983 still ranks among the most watched broadcasts in U.S. history. That kind of impact doesn't just happen. It's forged in the trenches, both real and fictional. From polio to prime time. Long before he became the wisecracking, heart-driven Hawkeye Pierce in MASH, Alan Alda was a boy caught between the glimmer of stage lights and the shadows of personal struggle. Born Alfonso Joseph d'Abruzzo. On January 28, 1936, in New York City, Alda's life began in a world where performance was currency, but stability was rare. His father, Robert Alda, was a charismatic actor and singer constantly in motion, touring the vaudeville and theater circuits, always chasing the next big role. His mother, Joan Brown, once a beauty pageant queen, battled undiagnosed mental illness, adding turbulence to a life already marked by unpredictability. The Alda household was equal parts dressing room and war zone, Italian roots clashing with Irish grit, glamour dancing with chaos. At age 7, Alda faced a trial that would shape his resilience forever: polio. In an era before modern treatments, young Alan endured torturous hot pack therapy, his limbs bound in scalding wool and forcibly stretched to preserve mobility. The pain was unforgettable, but so was the will it awakened in him. This early encounter with fragility gave Alda a clarity few child stars could claim. Despite his chaotic upbringing, Alda found purpose early on. At Archbishop Stepinac High School,
or having gone to high school, you gotta mix with the people who have really seriously studied things.
and later at Fordham University, he sharpened his intellect and voice, literally, working at the campus radio station WFUV. That microphone became his first stage, and communication, not just acting, became his calling. But Alda wasn't content with simply learning lines. He studied theater in Paris, performed on Dutch television with his father, and took gigs across Europe in the kind of artistic boot camp that Hollywood rarely tells you about. These weren't glamour shots. They were character-building trenches. He didn't just want to act, he wanted to understand humanity. When MASH hit screens in 1972, Alda brought more than talent. He brought lived experience. His portrayal of Hawkeye Pierce blended wit with conscience, comedy with moral clarity. He didn't just play a surgeon. He became the soul of the series, guiding viewers through war, politics, and raw emotion. Off-screen, he directed and wrote episodes, proving his storytelling instincts were just as sharp as his delivery. The soldier behind the stage lights. Before he became one of America's most beloved TV doctors, Alan Alda was navigating a very different script, one written in fatigues and discipline. Long before MASH made him a household name, Alda's real-life connection to the military was far from the war zones it often gets confused with. While studying at Fordham University, Alda enrolled in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, a decision that sent him straight to Fort Benning, Georgia, upon graduation. There he trained for a year, sharpening skills he'd never quite expected to use in Hollywood. Soon after, Alda spent 6 months stationed in South Korea, serving not on the front lines, but behind the scenes, as the operator of a mess tent. Though often misidentified as a Korean War veteran, Alda clarified that he didn't serve during combat. Still, his time in uniform left a lasting impression. That stint, half military, half culinary logistics, would eventually become the comedic foundation for his legendary role as Hawkeye Pierce in MASH, blurring lines between fiction and experience. But Alda's story isn't just about transformation, it's about defiance, too. His artistic journey began with Compass Players, an improvisational theater group that later birthed the iconic Second City comedy troupe. In 1958, he earned a season-long residency at the Cleveland Playhouse, taking on a variety of roles that polished his on-stage adaptability. That same year, television opened its doors with a role in The Phil Silvers Show, where he played a slick art dealer. A small part, but a telling sign of his range. By 1961, Alda had stepped onto Broadway, appearing in Ossie Davis's Pearly Victorious. But it was The Owl and the Pussycat that pushed him into the national conversation.
The Owl and the Pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat.
And not just for his acting chops. Sharing the stage with Diana Sands, an African-American actress, Alda performed an unstaged kiss that shocked parts of 1960s America. The backlash was immediate, but Alda, ever the principled performer, stood firm. He kept the role through the entire 1964-65 season, unwilling to edit truth for comfort. The making of a cultural icon. Before he became a household name, Alan Alda was already quietly shaping a legacy of range, reinvention, and relentless storytelling. Long before MASH, before the Emmy wins and the iconic smirk,
Throw away all the guns and invite all the jokers from the North and the South in here to a cocktail party.
there was The Apple Tree, a 1966 Broadway gem penned by the legendary duo Sheldon Harnick and Jerry Bach, fresh off the global success of Fiddler on the Roof. It was a whimsical trio of musical playlets, part satire, part fairy tale, all heart. And at its center stood Alda, magnetic and unafraid, earning a Tony nomination for Best Actor. But that glittering recognition wasn't what lit his path. Alda's real discovery happened almost a decade earlier. It was 1957. A Summer in Maine. A relatively unknown actor then, Alda was performing in regional theater, in that quiet corner of America, away from Broadway marquees or Hollywood spotlights. He felt a click, an anchoring sense that this, the raw intimacy of live performance and the power of storytelling, was his true north. It wasn't the fame, he'd later say, it was the connection. Through the 1960s, Alda treated his career like a well-scored jazz number, improvisational, rich with texture, and always evolving. He joined That Was the Week That Was, a sharp-witted American take on a British satirical news show, sharing screen space with future legends like David Frost and Buck Henry. He didn't chase stardom, he chased craft. Hollywood took notice. In Gone Are the Days, the film adaptation of Ossie Davis's Pearly Victorious, Alda delivered a performance that blurred the lines between stage gravitas and screen realism. Then came Paper Lion in 1968, where he stepped into the shoes of writer George Plimpton, playing a man pretending to be a football player, an oddly meta precursor to Alda's own life as an actor.
Armed in my throat and couldn't speak for the rest of the day, so that was my football career.
Constantly trying on new skins. He navigated seamlessly between genres, from the psychological thriller The Mephisto Waltz, 1971, opposite Jacqueline Bisset, to playful appearances on TV game shows like What's My Line and I've Got a Secret. Each turn hinted at his versatility and underlying curiosity. Even his pen had purpose. He contributed to Free to Be, You and Me, Marlo Thomas's trailblazing children's special that broke gender norms and redefined what growing up meant on television. Then came 1972, the year that transformed him from a rising star into a cultural force. MASH, an unexpected hit. When MASH first hit television screens in 1972, few could have predicted that it would become one of the most beloved and culturally significant sitcoms of all time. Based on the 1970 film of the same name, the series followed the lives of Army surgeons and medical staff stationed at a Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, MASH.
What do you mean, no pulse?
What I said, Doctor. No pulse.
Well, how did that happen? He was doing so well.
What's wrong?
During the Korean War, what started as a sharp-edged military comedy soon evolved into something deeper, a masterful blend of humor, heart, and social commentary that would leave an indelible mark on television history. At the center of it all was Alan Alda, whose portrayal of Captain Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce made him a household name.
Let Radar print up some tickets and you make up a sign.
Mind telling me what we're going to put on the sign?
Alda's Hawkeye was a man of contradictions, witty, yet deeply compassionate, rebellious, but fiercely dedicated to saving lives. Over the course of 11 seasons, Alda appeared in all 256 episodes, becoming not only the face of the show, but also one of its most influential creative forces. He wasn't just the leading man. He wrote 19 episodes, directed 32, and gradually took on a more significant role behind the scenes. As the show progressed, Alda helped shape MASH into something greater than a typical sitcom.
Not usually like this. He's just like that.
You're gonna love it over here.
Pushing it toward deeper, more introspective storytelling. While MASH started with the fast-paced comedic energy of military-themed shows like McHale's Navy, it soon broke the mold. Under Alda's influence, the series took bold risks, addressing war's emotional and psychological toll with a level of realism rarely seen in primetime television. The show's humor remained sharp, but the laughs were often punctuated by moments of raw, human vulnerability. Episodes tackled themes of PTSD, medical ethics, and the absurdity of war, resonating with audiences far beyond just military veterans. Alda's personal dedication to the show was nothing short of remarkable. Despite his growing Hollywood fame, he refused to move to Los Angeles, choosing instead to commute from his home in New Jersey every weekend, a testament to his commitment to both his career and his family. His father, Robert Alda, and half-brother Anthony Alda even made guest appearances, making MASH a true family affair.
As long as my snoring is off the record.
I consider it a welcome respite to share my tent with someone who actually appreciates...
As the series evolved, some viewers embraced the shift toward deeper storytelling, while others missed the lighter, more comedic early years. Alda, often credited and sometimes criticized for this transformation, refuted claims that he had a political agenda. "I don't like to write political messages," he insisted in a 2016 interview. Instead, he focused on crafting stories rooted in humanity, complexity, and emotional truth. By the time MASH aired its legendary final episode in 1983, it had cemented itself as more than just a sitcom. It was a cultural milestone. The finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, remains one of the most watched television episodes in history, proving that audiences had connected deeply with the characters and their journey. When MASH took a turn. By the end of its third season, trouble was brewing behind the scenes of MASH. What had started as a sharp, witty sitcom was slowly shifting into more serious territory. Some writers and producers weren't happy. They felt the show was drifting too far from its comedic roots. The audience had come for laughs. Would they stick around for weighty drama? No one felt this divide more than Larry Gelbart, the show's original head writer and creative force. He was the mind behind MASH's early satirical edge, building its identity on clever writing and biting humor. But as the tone began to change, he felt less at home. He respected the new direction, but it wasn't his vision. After season 4, he decided to step away. "At some point, you have to know when to walk away," Gelbart said in an interview. "I loved the show, but it was heading somewhere I couldn't follow." His exit wasn't the only one. As MASH pushed deeper into emotional and dramatic themes, the creative team began to shift. Some embraced the change. Others left quietly. Even CBS started to worry. Could a show that once made people laugh survive this serious new tone? But then something unexpected happened. Instead of losing viewers, MASH found a deeper connection. Audiences stayed. The show became more powerful and more respected. The risk paid off. Still, the longer a show runs, the more changes it faces. Some of those changes were painful. One of the most heartbreaking came in season 8, when Gary Berghoff, who played Radar O'Reilly, left the series. Radar wasn't just another character, he was the heart of the show. Loyal, innocent, and always one step ahead of what others needed, he represented hope in the chaos. His exit hit hard.
My Uncle Ed used to give me a quarter to go to the movies. What? I'm going. Look at that boy.
Both on screen and off, fans felt it. The cast felt it. And so did Berghoff. Behind the scenes, he had been struggling.
I do the filing.
Radar, whatever happened to that sweet, adorable you?
None of your beeswax.
The emotional weight of the role and the long work hours were taking a toll. He didn't leave out of frustration. He left to protect himself. His final episode, Goodbye, Radar, became one of the most emotional in TV history. It wasn't just about a character leaving. It marked the end of something deeper. That's what MASH did best. It told stories that took risks. It said goodbye when it needed to, and it was never afraid to trade comfort for truth. Behind the laughs. In the legendary corridors of television history, MASH stands as more than just a comedy. It's a raw, layered look into wartime humanity. At its emotional core were two very different men. The unpredictable, sharp-witted Hawkeye Pierce and the grounded, principled B.J. Honeycutt.
I present Captain B.J. Honeycutt.
What unfolded between them wasn't just sitcom chemistry. It was the kind of messy, meaningful friendship rarely captured with such nuance on screen. When Mike Farrell stepped into the shoes left behind by Wayne Rogers' Trapper John in season 4, audiences weren't just introduced to a new character, they witnessed a slow, burning shift in the soul of the show. Unlike Trapper's carefree and prankster-like bond with Hawkeye, BJ brought a quieter, more morally centered presence to the 4077. Farrell's portrayal made BJ the kind of friend who would call Hawkeye out, not just laugh at his jokes. This shift wasn't accidental. It was a creative pivot shaped, in part, by Alan Alda himself. Alda, who not only starred as Hawkeye, but grew increasingly involved behind the scenes, helped steer the show's tone from slapstick to something more introspective. He wanted MASH to mirror the real psychological toll of war. The evolution of BJ's character, becoming less of a sidekick and more of a counterbalance, served that goal. In one behind-the-scenes moment, often glossed over in fan retrospectives, Farrell reportedly expressed discomfort about BJ being used solely for comedic relief.
Rise and shine, JB. Or don't they do that in this man's army anymore?
Alda agreed. They wanted him to have depth, anger, and conflict. And so, over the seasons, we watched BJ lose patience with the madness, clash with Hawkeye, and even challenge the very ethics of their surgical work in Korea. It was a friendship built on respect, but also tension. They disagreed, argued, forgave, and laughed again. And that felt real. If this were a celebrity documentary, imagine a voiceover cutting between scenes of the actors on set and commentary from Alda and Farrell in vintage interviews. "We wanted to show what friendship looks like under pressure," Alda once said. Not the idealized version, the flawed, real version. The untold casting secrets behind MASH. In the world of television legends, MASH stands as a rare alchemy of casting genius and narrative charm. But if you think the show's ensemble clicked into place effortlessly, think again. The journey behind assembling the now iconic cast is a story of timing, risk, and unexpected pivots. More documentary intrigue than Hollywood fairy tale. Take Loretta Sweet, for example, the powerhouse behind Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. Today, her portrayal is etched into television history. But back in the early 70s, Sweet was actually unavailable. She had already inked a deal with another show. That series fizzled before takeoff, opening a narrow window for her to step into the role that would define her career. "It was a miracle of timing," she later told the Television Academy Foundation, acknowledging that had things gone even slightly differently, MASH might have had a very different face and voice at its core. Larry Linville, who played the notoriously unlikable Major Frank Burns, knew exactly what he was signing up for. There was no heroism, no redemption arc, just pure bureaucratic coldness. But Linville leaned into it with a sense of purpose. "I knew going in that my job was to be the jerk," he told People, adding that the real challenge was to give Frank a hint of humanity beneath the smug exterior. "He was the guy you love to hate," Linville admitted, and hate him audiences did, but never without watching. Then came David Ogden Stiers, entering the show like a late-season MVP.
Actor David Ogden Stiers, best known for playing Major Winchester on the TV sitcom MASH, has died.
Replacing a well-known character on a beloved series is television's version of walking into a lion's den. But Stiers didn't try to replicate Linville's antics. Instead, he gave life to Major Charles Emerson Winchester III, a man of refinement, intellect, and, occasionally, soul-stirring vulnerability. He wasn't frank, Stiers told the New York Times. He had layers. He was less the punchline, more the chess player, strategic, proud, flawed. Each of these casting decisions could have unraveled the show's chemistry. Yet, they clicked because the creators weren't chasing popularity. They were building an ecosystem of contrast, a mix of egos, ethics, and emotional depth. It's a lesson straight from a Discovery Channel-style deep dive into TV lore. Sometimes, the best ensemble isn't born. It's assembled under pressure, guided by instinct, and held together by a raw talent. A farewell to MASH. Alan Alda didn't just play the sharp-witted Hawkeye Pierce on MASH, he helped shape the soul of the show. As the Vietnam War raged outside American living rooms, the series began to reflect deeper scars than just battlefield wounds. MASH wasn't content being another wartime comedy. With Alda's growing creative influence, it evolved into something far more provocative, a televised dissection of the human condition. Post-traumatic stress, gender inequality, racism, and moral ambiguity quietly took center stage beneath the laugh track. The show's finale, still one of the most watched television events in history, pulled no punches. One haunting storyline involved a mother silencing her baby on a refugee bus, an act of desperation that left Hawkeye mentally shattered, requiring therapy. It was Alda's idea to push Hawkeye's character into that psychological darkness, and it rattled audiences. This wasn't just a sitcom anymore, it was a mirror. Not everyone was on board with this tonal shift. Larry Gelbart, the original showrunner and head writer, left after season 4. Burned out and frustrated by both network pressures and the show's evolving agenda, Gelbart later told the Los Angeles Times, "It wasn't an easy decision, but at some point, you have to know when to move on." His departure marked a turning point. MASH would no longer be the same sharp-edged satire it started as. It became something murkier, more reflective, more human. Behind the scenes, tensions were real. Gary Berghoff, who played Radar O'Reilly, the sweet-hearted clerk with an almost psychic sense of what was coming, walked away in season 8. The emotional weight of the role and the non-stop grind of filming wore him down. "I loved Radar," he admitted years later in a Television Academy interview, "but I needed to breathe." Berghoff's exit echoed the real-life toll that portraying trauma, fictional or not, can take. Yet for all the departures and internal shifts, MASH endured. In many ways, it became TV's first wartime docudrama wearing a sitcom's face. A prototype for what prestige television would one day become. Alda, almost unknowingly, pioneered what would later be called the celebrity activist showrunner, using entertainment to probe emotional truths. The real battle wasn't on the screen. It was in the writer's room, on the set, and inside the actors themselves. MASH may have ended in 1983, but its legacy of emotional honesty and cultural commentary still echoes, not as a punchline, but as a powerful, enduring statement.